Starting us off in at number 10, Vulcan. Vulcan, who was first introduced in X-Men Deadly Genesis issue 1 in 2006, is the younger brother of Cyclops and Havoc, and compared to his siblings, he is a baddie. Vulcan, aka Gabriel Summers, had a much more tragic origin story than his brothers. After his mother Catherine Summers was abducted by the Magister of the Shi'ar Empire and was killed by him, the unborn child inside of her was removed, that's Vulcan, and then placed in an incubation accelerator, which is normally used to breed slaves. Later, Vulcan would escape after being aged to an adolescent, and was found by Moira McTaggart with little to no memories of his past. Vulcan is capable of a whole lot. His powers include vast energy absorption, manipulation, transformation, and projection, all of which he does psionically. He can also control exotic energies like Cyclops' optic blast and magical energy. He has limited superpower replication and repression, force field projection and manipulation, psionic resistance, and life support and limited regeneration. Fun fact, Vulcan became an Omega level mutant when he absorbed a massive amount of mutant energies from M-Day. Moving on to our next number, in at 9, Elixir. Elixir is a character who first appeared on Marvel's panels in 2003 in New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 5. He is capable of controlling the biological structure of any organic matter, which also includes his own body, an ability that is dependent on his proximity to said matter. Naturally, this allows him to have great healing abilities, but he can do much more than that. Elixir can boost and restore mutant abilities, he can cause welts and boils to appear on an individual, he can manipulate the life forces of others, create tumors, cure the legacy virus, cleanse the body of toxins like drugs, and even cause death. He's also practically immortal, with his abilities allowing him to resurrect himself, be reborn into a new body, or just regenerate on a cellular level. Must be nice. And it's not just himself that he can resurrect. He was able to affect the 16 million deceased mutants on Genosha, all at once, and was capable of resurrecting them according to Magneto's speculation. The Stepford Cuckoos also transferred Beast's knowledge of anatomy, biology, and genetics into his mind, furthering his capabilities. The one downside though is that Elixir can pass out after pushing his powers too far. Moving on to number 8, Legion. Legion, aka David Charles Haller, is the son of Professor Xavier, who is known for his severe mental illness, specifically his dissociative identity disorder, in which each of his alternate personas controls one of his superpowers. Legion first appeared in New Mutants issue 25 in 1985, and his powers include reality warping, shape-shifting, matter manipulation and transmutation, energy manipulation, telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, and time travel. But here is where things get interesting. His multiple personality disorder is rooted in his telepathy. Because of this, he can absorb other people into his mind if he is right next to them when they die. The manifestation of his individual powers are associated with a different alter ego, each which controls a different power. The culmination of all his personalities and their powers makes him one of the strongest mutants in existence. After the Age of X, Legion was given a neural switchboard wristband, which allowed him to key in a number which stimulates cells in his thalamus and neocortex, creating a one-way link between his mind and one of his sub-selves. This lets him utilize his power sets without being overwhelmed by his other personalities.
Number 7, Namor. You might not think of this Atlantean mutant when it comes to those of mutant kind who are known for their strength, but Namor would likely be able to take on and defeat many other mutants and heroes in an arm wrestle, especially if the championship took place underwater. Namor is at his most powerful when underwater, but even when he is on land and weakened somewhat by his distance from the sea, he is still impressively strong. He has been able to knock out both She-Hulk and Hulk on occasion, and he once defeated Red Hulk in an underwater battle. Namor can take on basically all of the Hulks, though probably not at the same time. They'd be like Hulk smash, and then Namor would be dead. Number 6, Sebastian Shaw. No matter what you throw at this former leader of the Hellfire Club, he can store it up and throw it right back at you. Sebastian Shaw is a mutant who can absorb whatever energy is tossed his way, using it to strengthen and fortify himself. This makes him hard to beat in a fist fight, as throughout, he often just continues to get stronger and stronger as his opponent eventually will tire. With most mutants who have energy absorption powers, there is a limit as to how much they can take, and we eventually find out what this is when they become overloaded with energy. But with Sebastian Shaw, we have yet to discover what his limit is, and he's a character who's been around since the 80s, so he's been around for a while. This lack of knowledge could actually imply that his powers are limitless, though we don't really know yet, but he could be Omega level, just saying. Number 5, Colossus. What super strong mutant list would be complete without one of the greatest? Pyotr Rasputin, Colossus, is often known for his super strength due to his tough steel form. And despite steel not being as strong as some of the other famous metals of the Marvelverse, Colossus has still managed to prove just how tough he is on more than one occasion. He shielded his fellow X-Men from a blast of deadly energy from Terminus, a powerful foe of the Celestials. He's managed to crack Juggernaut's helmet while he was Kurth, Breaker of Stone, and even managed to survive a fight against World War Hulk. Yeah, I know he got his arms broken, but still, just taking on this version of Hulk is impressive. Number 4, Omega Red. So based on what we just talked about in regards to Colossus, I know what you're thinking. How can Omega Red be considered stronger than him? It doesn't make sense, Amanda. Well, Colossus fought World War Hulk, yes, but when it comes to steel, no matter how reliable it is, there are still stronger materials, like Omega Red's carbonadium-infused body and tentacles. And as such, when Colossus and villain Omega Red came to blows in issue 499 of Uncanny X-Men, it ended up being Arkady, not Pyotr, who proved he was made of stronger stuff, especially after the Red Room had increased Omega Red's strength and durability. He handily drained some of Colossus's life energy with his tentacles, and even managed to penetrate Colossus's impenetrable skin. Blech. If it weren't for Nightcrawler's interference, it is very likely that Omega Red would have defeated both Colossus and Wolverine, whom he was fighting at the time. I know what you're thinking, but doesn't Wolverine have adamantium? Isn't adamantium stronger than carbonadium? You're right, but you know what? Maybe we'll see Wolverine on a part 2, okay? Just deal with it. He's strong though. He's strong. But Sabretooth is stronger than him, so... And where does Sabretooth fall in all of this? We really need a part 2 to this list, to be honest. Number 3, Hope Summers. Hope is a similar power set to Rogue. She is the adopted daughter of Cable. I know, it's a little confusing. She looks like a natural born relative of Jean Grey's, but she isn't. She just happens to bear a resemblance and shares that striking red hair. Hope is probably one of the most powerful mutants around because she can copy anyone's powers in her vicinity without even needing to drain them of their power or energy, or touch them at all. And she can have as many powers as she likes, and the powers she mimics are considered to be at their full strength, their highest limit, the most potent they could possibly be. So now, imagine if she went toe to toe with any other super strong mutant or super. I mean, granted, if Hope goes toe to toe with almost anyone, she's got it in the bag. But super strength also falls within her wheelhouse when applicable. Her only real weakness is time and distance, as eventually the powers will wear off the further away she gets from her opponent, which means running away would be the best option for any super strong foe who comes up against her, which is probably why we don't see her as much in the comics. She's too powerful. Number 2, Apocalypse. When it comes to a flexing competition, Apocalypse is another mutant who could easily win the day. He is more durable than most with a slew of other abilities, but his super strength is not just an add-on when it comes to those abilities, and he's evolving all the time, so it's likely we'll only see him become even stronger as time goes on. And Sabanur is so strong that he has managed to hold back the Hulk, an impressive feat. Sure, this was when Hulk was separated from Banner and couldn't really rely on rage to increase his strength, but the Hulk also had a higher base level power in this state, because he was kind of like always angry. So either way you slice it, Apocalypse still looks like a muscly badass. A slice of muscly badass. Ew. That's gross. Number 1, Onslaught. Kind of a weird one to include on this list, as Onslaught is sort of just Dark Xavier with some Magneto mixed in. And Xavier's not a mutant normally thought of for his strength. Though to be fair, people often seem to forget that Xavier is a skilled and trained fighter and martial artist, just because they still think of him as a telepath confined to a wheelchair, even though he hasn't really been that version of himself since the early 2000s. So why do people still think of that? I don't know. When Onslaught emerged, he was a force to be reckoned with on all fronts. Not only insanely psychically strong, but also physically strong as well. This is a foe who managed to punch Juggernaut so hard he flew across Canada and landed in the USA. He also managed to rip out the Sidorak gem from Juggernaut's body as well. And he managed to hold off the Hulk. So yeah, I think he might qualify for the gold medal in this arm wrestling competition, even without his psychic abilities. Although to be honest, anyone who possesses powerful telekinetic skills in my mind could also be considered super strong. They could technically just flex with their brain to make their arms look like they're strong. You might think that's cheating, but I don't know. I think telekinetics, they're powerful. They can flex too.
And at 10, Angry Eagle. On Earth 982 there was a decrease in anti-mutant sentiment, so Jubilee found 4 heroes to form the X-People, originally forming in J2 number 1. The X-People were a team set out on investigating rumors that the Juggernaut had returned, when it was in fact his son who had given himself the name J2. Angry Eagle, who is now simply called Eagle, is a mutant with the ability to fly thanks to large bird-like wings on his back. I mean, where else would they be? Under his arms? I mean, okay, I guess. And he throws stun daggers at his opponents. He has appeared in 17 Teen comics known at this time, with series involving J2, Spider-Girl, Last Planet Standing, The Amazing Spider-Girl, and Spider Island. And while not much is known about the character, he looks pretty angelic to me. I mean, while Feathered Wings is a dead giveaway, we don't really know enough about him to get a definitive answer. In at 9, Rapture, Sister Joy. Sister Joy is a blue-skinned nun with large dove wings. She can fly and is a skilled sword combatant. She was created from the power template of Archangel, the appearance of Mystique, and the personality of Nightcrawler. She first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 360 as a member of Cerebro's X-Men, and while she may have done evil deeds while serving Cerebro, she believed she was doing the right thing. Which, while many villains do think, they also know that what they are doing is wrong and illegal. But Rapture was created with the express purpose of capturing all mutants, but to her, she was a nun who cared for injured birds until the founder recruited her to join the X-Men. So she believes she is a part of the real X-Men, and that's what's important in this case. Unfortunately, Rapture, along with the rest of Cerebro's X-Men, were absorbed into Cerebro and destroyed in order to grant Cerebro enough strength to defeat the real X-Men. So, kinda short-lived, but oh well. Still an angel in all the best ways now. Is that too far? And at 8, Pixie. Megan's powers manifested in a near-miss accident involving her on a bicycle and another car. She realized she could manifest butterfly-like wings, which allow her to fly with incredible maneuverability. While she may not have big white feathery wings like others on this list, she still fights the good fight, being a part of the X-Men, Paragon Squad, and New X-Men. Plus, when her and her fellow students got stuck in limbo, the only way she could get any darkness inside of her was to literally give up a portion of her soul that was used to form her soul dagger. While she does have some darkness now, she was straight up fighting off demons in limbo with her pixie dust, making them hallucinate. The same stuff that she got Wolverine to hallucinate unicorns with. Fighting demons, having wings, and being pure until you've made a bad decision because you wanted to help someone definitely makes you angelic. More angelic than me, that's for sure. I'm only missing one of those things. I don't have wings. I wish I had wings. I wouldn't want like big wings though. I'm thinking like black pixie wings that are like sharp enough to cut throats. Right, sorry, angelic video. My bad.
Number 7. Forearm. Michael McCain is the mutant under the name Forearm. An exceedingly clever name, as this mutant's ability is that Forearm has 4 arms. Oh boy. Alongside his 4 arms ability, Forearm also has access to super strength, stamina, and durability. Because honestly, Forearms isn't exactly gonna save him in the majority of mutant conflicts. That being said though, I would kill to have 2 extra arms. I just can't help but imagine how useful that would be. Add to the fact that your arms are super strong, not only can you make a peanut butter jelly sandwich while texting your friends and petting a cat or something, but you can also trade 2 extra fists worth of punches with some heavy hitting mutants who only get 2 hands. For Michael, when his powers are used in unison with his extra limbs, he is a formidable close combat specialist, able to hold his own against some of X-Men's own powerhouses like Rockslide. He was a founding member of the Mutant Liberation Front, and he is now happily living on Krakoa. Number 6. Nature Girl. Although Lin Lee started off at Jean Grey's school for higher learning, after she witnessed some of the horrible things humanity is doing to the earth and to nature, she would instead become an eco-terrorist, fighting back against humanity, which makes sense given her powers. Nature Girl's powers are directly connected to the natural world, so she can communicate, influence, manipulate, and control nature, living beings, except I guess not humans or mutants, plants, natural phenomena like the weather and geology of the earth, and the matter and energy of which all these things are composed of. Now that statement alone kind of encompasses a lot of different stuff. She can call upon animals and ally herself with them. She can make plants grow, move, and attack people. She can control the weather to a degree and heal nature to a degree too. She was on the run from Wolverine for a while and was able to get away from him a few times using her abilities. And she looks totally awesome wielding the Krakoan cudgel with her big antlers and the goat legs and stuff. Super cool. Number 5. Miranda. The only reason this character is on this list is because a lot of people have not heard of her. She doesn't even have a last name. Miranda had powers that appeared at first to be cosmic level reality warping. Warping on a level the Beast created the term Omicron level mutant to call her. He thought she was able to manipulate reality while somehow completely avoiding any damage to space or time. Like when she has stopped the Juggernaut in his path by making a well appear right below him that he was falling down millions of miles. But what Miranda's mutant power actually was control over all of Marvel's continuity. She is the one who has been keeping all of Marvel's mutants young. She's the reason the old Nick Fury got replaced by Samuel L. Jackson, and she's the reason Bucky Barnes came back as the Winter Soldier. soldier. At least, she is in this alternate universe of Earth TRN 656, the one from X-Men Worst X-Man Ever. I'm just kind of curious to see if this ultra powerful mutant will ever show up in other stories or even the 616 universe at all. Number 4, Banshee. Sean Cassidy has been around for one heck of a long time in the world of Marvel's mutant community, and he has done some pretty prominent things, but his power doesn't seem like it's all that impressive, and he is kind of looked over when thinking about the mutants, but he shouldn't be. Sean has acoustic kinesis, an ability he does many cool things with. Primarily, Sean emits a sonic scream. Now the sound waves from this sonic scream have shattered solid objects, cracked skulls, and even liquefied people. But he has done so much more with this ability. He can ride the sound waves he creates using his suit to be able to fly at subsonic speeds. He can create sonar by sending out a pure signal note and listening to the returning sound. He can tighten the sound waves around himself and others to create sonic shields. And more than that though, he has been shown to affect the fluid inside people's ears with his sonic screams, being able to set them off balance and even render them unconscious. One ability that had me raising an eyebrow is the fact that Banshee can even subtly influence people's subconscious mind by changing the tones and vibrations of his voice, effectively using hypersonic suggestions and persuasive abilities. Don't sleep on Banshee, people. Number 3, Northstar. Jean-Paul Beaubier is an interesting mutant with a few different abilities. Northstar's main ability is super speed. Not really in the traditional sense of running really fast though. Northstar can propel his body at superhuman speed, becoming a living projectile, channeling a portion of the kinetic energy of his body's molecules in a single direction. It's even possible for him to reach 99% the speed of light in a vacuum. But if he were to do it on Earth or something, he'd not only damage himself, but could quite possibly break the planet. He can also super speed any part of his body, giving him superhuman reflexes and an incredibly fast metabolism to heal wounds. What's really cool is that since he is taking atomic motion from the muscles, his muscles become closer, making him superhumanly durable, allowing him to survive moving at the speeds he does without tearing himself apart. He also uses his ability to fly by projecting the kinetic energy downwards, which in turn lifts him upwards. Northstar used this ability to basically cheat as an Olympic skier, which is kind of really unfair, but whatever. And we haven't even talked about his photokinesis and concussive blasts yet, and we're not going to, so moving on. Number 2, Sage. Sage is a super genius with a brain more powerful than any computer in the world, granting her perfect memory and rapid analytical abilities. She can come up with the perfect plan in an instant, learn just about any skill without having to practice it, remember everything she's ever experienced, perform multiple tasks at once by allocating a partition of her brain to each task, and, thanks to training with Professor X, she can engage in telepathy. Her telepathic abilities allow her to detect minds and read them, project thoughts, astral projection, cast realistic mental illusions, and she even has a kind of psionic defense unique to her called her firewall. But it doesn't even stop there, as Sage even has some biokinetic abilities as well, including reading another mutant or person's genetic code and DNA, being able to literally see who someone's related to, jump-starting latent or enhancing current mutant abilities, and has complete control over her physical body, being able to expel nanobots from her body by controlling her immune system, almost like highly advanced antivirus. She needs more time in the spotlight, like desperately. And in at number 1 is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. You may remember Ellie Phimister as the super angsty Negasonic Teenage Warhead from the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool movies. And while that character was both hilarious and awesome, she is kind of pretty different in the comics. Obviously, she is still a teenager with that ridiculous yet awesome name, but her powers seem to be vastly different. Ellie's powers are psychically based, and primarily take the form of precognitive nightmares and premonitions, meaning she sees the future. Specifically, she saw disasters before they happened, which kind of explains the heightened teenage angst thing. But she would go on to start having glimpses of danger in the near future, which allows her to plan ahead or avoid attacks. She also possesses other psychic abilities like telepathy, telekinesis, and has been able to levitate. But maybe strongest of all is her abilities of reality warping and particle manipulation and absorption. Plus, some of the superhuman starter pack abilities including strength, speed, durability, and reflexes. As well as just being an awesome character, partially due to her texting movie counterpart. Coming in at number 10, it's Toad. Toad has been a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and by extension a part of the mutant community for a hot minute, but in my opinion Mortimer Toynbee hasn't really been utilized as much as he should be given his massive list of abilities. Toad has a degree of superhuman strength specifically in his back and legs, which allow the little weirdo to jump around 25 to 37 feet, and he'll kick you so hard you ain't getting back up. He's got flexible bone structure, superhuman stamina, durability, reflexes, and agility. Toad, like a lot of super beings, has a regenerative healing factor, but unlike a lot of mutants, he has UV vision, a super strong 30-foot prehensile tongue, acidic saliva, sticky paralytical resin out of his pores, and pheromone secretion. I can understand why he isn't exactly at the top of the mutant landscape, partially because he's kind of really gross, and just overall unpleasant, but he does have a hell of a lot of abilities to offer. Number 9. Ricochet. Now I don't know if this is cheating, because you slap some web shooters, super strength, and the ability to do everything a spider can on this mutant and you basically have Spider-Man. In fact, the superhero name and costume used by Jonathan Gallo was originally used by Peter Parker as a secondary superhero identity when Spider-Man was framed for ending someone's life. But enough about Webhead. Jonathan Gallo is a mutant with the abilities of superhuman agility and reflexes, with his agility allowing him to jump long distances, and when he combines his powers he can almost bounce off walls in a sort of, I don't know, ricocheting type movement? But that's not all. Ricochet also has another mutation in the form of his danger sense, which is totally not the same as spider sense, except it sort of is. It allows Jonathan to sense danger before it happens. Now with his agility, reflexes, and danger sense, this mutant possesses 3 of Spider-Man's more useful abilities, but he's just different and cool enough that I can still respect him as more than some cheap knockoff. Number 8. Lifeguard. Lifeguard, or Heather Cameron, arguably has one of the most useful mutant powers possible. Her ability is called Danger Detection Response, and basically what it means is that she can detect danger to her or others' lives in her vicinity, and she can literally evolve whatever powers are necessary for her to stop those lives from being lost. She can gain more than one power at a time and is able to control said powers after just a few seconds. It also seems to be kind of limitless in what she can do. Her situation biomorphic adaptations have taken the form of growing wings for flight, extra arms for carrying and super strength, her skin turning into a sort of golden metallic super awesome armor, gills for underwater breathing with her legs even turning into a fishtail for better swimming ability, as well as simply upping her strength level from normal to superhuman. It's almost too fitting that she was an actual lifeguard before her powers emerged. She's a literal lifesaver.
Number 7. Ellie Camacho. Eleanor is the daughter of Deadpool and Carmelita Karma Camacho. That's right, Deadpool is a daughter, if you can believe it. Carmelita and Deadpool were being held hostage together, and fearing that she would die, Carmelita decided she wanted her last acts to be those of love. Her and Deadpool were rescued right in the middle of this act of love, but he still managed to get her pregnant. She initially raised baby Ellie on her own, but did track down Deadpool to at least get him to recognize his daughter and take some responsibility. That was during the time that he was actually working for Butler and constantly having his mind wiped. Butler saw the child as an opportunity, and before Deadpool could scare off Carmelita and baby Ellie, took a blood sample from the baby. This happened in Deadpool Volume 3, Issue 34 out of 2013. And in this issue we learned that the results of that blood test proved that Ellie had an active X gene, meaning she was a mutant who would one day grow up to manifest powers. We don't know what they are yet, but I'm sure they're gonna be amazing. Also, she's a mutant, so cool. Number 6. Nature Girl. Nature Girl was given her name by Eye-Boy. The two mutants also went on a bit of an adventure together while babysitting Jubilee's adopted son, Shogo. And the two were both a part of Jubilee's team of mutants to train at Kitty Pryde's Xavier Institute for Mutant Education and Outreach in Central Park. They are also really cute together, with Eye-Boy being covered in eyes and Lynn with her little antlers being a master of nature. Lynn Lee, aka Nature Girl's powers consist of an ability to bend nature to her will and communicate with it. She is able to soothe beasts, can control the elements, and can even heal nature. Truly the mutant we could all use right now, am I right? Come on, heal this terrible Earth that we have destroyed. Lynn Lee was also a student at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Number 5. Matthew Malloy. One of the most powerful mutants who kinda no longer exists. But he could still exist, I guess, if writers decided to bring him back. He was basically written out of existence when Tempest went back in time and prevented his parents from ever meeting, meaning he was never conceived and therefore did not exist in present day. This had to happen because Malloy proved too strong and unstable, with his powers being strongly linked to his emotions. He emitted a blast of energy that ended up destroying destroying most of Atlanta. He also has strong reality warping powers, telekinesis, and telepathy. He could also even manipulate matter. It was even suggested that he was beyond Omega level in the comics, so although writers have written him out, I wouldn't be surprised at his power level if he didn't find a way to return to the comics. He didn't even make it to 10 issues in Uncanny X-Men Volume 3. Still, he demonstrated such power that I feel he's really worth mentioning. You know, we might see him again someday. Who knows? Number 4. Sapna. While Sapna may have only existed in corporal form for only a short time in the comics, it's possible she could actually live on forever in Magic's Soul Sword. Sapna was a young mutant girl who appeared to have magical powers at first. This intrigued Magic, who wanted to know the extent of the young mutant's powers, and so took her to see Doctor Strange. It turned out that she actually had language-based powers, but because her powers manifested while she was in limbo, this caused her to absorb all of the magical and demonic knowledge of that realm, meaning that she could control demons and open gateways to other realms and dimensions. Magic was attempting to train her when Sapna had visions of doing harm to Magic, and that made her run away. The being that offered her help only wanted to use her, and Magic was forced to kill Sapna with her soul sword. However, this also preserved Sapna's soul within it, allowing her to live on in spirit, sort of. So she's like dead, but she's in her soul sword, so, you know. Lives on in a sword. Sounds boring. Number 3. Bailey Hoskins. Bailey is a mutant I wish we got to see more of. He is the star of the one-off, non-canon comic series X-Men Worst X-Man Ever. I say non-canon lightly because this is Marvel we're talking about, so everything is kind of canon, just living in an alternate reality. Bailey currently resides in a reality which isn't really quite established, temporarily suggested to be the alternate reality of 656, a placeholder for now. Bailey's mutant ability is self-detonation, which he can regrettably only use once, as he has no resurrection or healing powers to protect him. Well, you might think that makes him the worst X-Man ever. I would argue it is the one he chooses to use that power on and stand up against that is actually the worst in that comic series, the vile fascist mutant leader Riches. Number 2. Hindsight. While Nathaniel Carver might not appear to have the strongest power just yet, I'm certain, like most underrated powers, that with more control over his abilities, he could prove to be more useful than originally anticipated. Nathaniel, aka Hindsight, has the ability to see one's recent past upon making physical contact with them. He can also use this ability on objects, allowing him to see any psychic imprints left behind on that object, a power that Jean Grey actually also has. But one of my favorite things about Nathaniel was his fear of these powers getting in the way of a relationship that he started developing with fellow student Benji, aka Benjamin Deeds, aka Mork, who I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, love overcame fear and the two ended up together, and are admittedly adorable together. Yay! Future gay X-Men, bring them on, I'm ready. Give me all the gay X-Men. Number 1. Moira McTaggart. One amazing revelation we got from the House of X Powers of X series was the truth behind Moira McTaggart. Moira has always been painted as an ally to the X-Men, but in House of X we found out what really drew her to their cause. Although Moira has been a long-standing character in the comics, first appearing in 1975, it wasn't until recently that we discovered she was a mutant. Dun dun dun! It turns out that her power is to live her life again, allowing her to see the different outcomes of different futures and allowing her to effectively alter her own fate as well as the world's with her life choices. Her resurrection power is an odd one, and Destiny confessed to Moira that she only saw her living a maximum of 11 lives, if she played her cards right. Still, when used correctly, it would appear to be a powerful mutant ability, as you see in House of X if you read it. If you haven't read it, what are you doing? Get out of here. Number 10. Ophis. Ophis was a large, frightening, demonic mutant also belonging to the Neophem. He had an insane level of strength and durability. If Yggdrasil was the dark opposite of Angel, then Ophis was the dark opposite to Wolverine, which is saying something about just how dark and demonic he was, as Logan himself has a pretty dark side. As such, in the battle with X-Men, Ophis ended up torturing a captured Wolverine, but during the destruction of Azazel's castle, he ended up getting an arm free, and well, that was kind of the end of Ophis, cause you know, snicked. You know how it goes. Literally the next panel, just Wolverine. Snicked. He dead. Claws to the head. What a way to go. Number 9. Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil was part of Azazel's army, a member of the Neophem. The Neophem are basically demonic mutants, so expect to maybe see a few more of their numbers on this list, other than Ophis and Yggdrasil. After Azazel and the other Neophem were exiled to the Brimstone Dimension following a feud with the Chearophim, basically the opposite of the Neophem, angelic mutants, they plotted to one day escape their hellish dimension. They even temporarily succeeded and were fought against by the X-Men. Angel was captured in the fight and given to Yggdrasil to torture, but was saved when Yggdrasil was killed. Yggdrasil, like Angel, also had wings and could fly. He was also superhumanly strong and dexterous. Ooh la la. Number 8. Kiwi Black. Kiwi Black is Nightcrawler's half-brother. He is the son of Azazel and likely an indigenous Polynesian woman from New Zealand, as he is part Maori. He was depowered on M-Day, which is why he takes one of the bottom spots, but when he did have powers, they were pretty neat. He could channel bioenergy and use it to increase his strength, or channel it through other beings via touch to disrupt their powers or cause their organs to malfunction. He could also channel this energy through natural surroundings in order to alter it. For example, smashing craters in the ground, or using his powers to cause rock formations to appear shooting up out of the ground. Originally, Kiwi Black worked along Azazel, helping him to try and free his army from the dimension that they were trapped in and transport them to Earth. However, after surviving a sacrificial ritual, he ended up rebelling and instead allied himself with the X-Men. That's what happens when you find out your dad's trying to use you as a gateway. Dang. Time to join the good guys, I guess.
And at number 7, the Marquis of Death. The Marquis of Death was considered to be a mutant beyond Omega level, and technically on his alternate Earth he was the most powerful mutant since he was the only mutant to have existed in that reality. He would teach Dr. Doom everything he knew, with Doom as his apprentice, and Doom would be responsible for killing him too. The Marquis, whose real name is Clyde Winsham Jr., hails from Earth 807128, and first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 562 in 2009, and died a handful of issues later. Capable of warping reality on a multiversal scale, he can travel between parallel universes, effortlessly obliterate pretty much anything, which also includes entire realities, and can create abstract entities who overpower the likes of Galactus. He could even control eternity, having the entity battle on his behalf, and that's a scary thought. Clyde essentially made himself the master of time and space. Thank God for Dr. Doom. And at 6, Proteus. Proteus is the son of Moira McTaggart, a mutant by the name of Kevin McTaggart, who can psionically manipulate reality. He can manipulate the energy around him at will, with his only limit being his own imagination. Having to live most of his life in forced seclusion, his powers are not to be taken lightly. He exists in a state of pure psionic energy, and has shown he is capable of possessing human bodies, although that usually ends poorly, with the bodies of most beings he's possessed burning out within a few days, even a few hours. None of the individuals he's possessed in the past have shown capable of breaking free of his domination. When possessing, Proteus can access all of their memories and retains them even after he's left their body. There is one restraint though: those with metal in their bodies appear to be immune to his possession, like Wolverine, with metal being his only weakness as it disrupts his energy and can disperse his consciousness. He can manipulate reality by transmuting matter, and he bends the laws of physics. He can turn buildings into liquid, a vehicle into bees, which he then commands. He can strip a person of their mutant powers, reverse local gravity, open fissures in the earth, and painfully stretch individuals into liquid shapes. His abilities are contingent on his line of sight. If he shifts to a different thing to manipulate, his previous manipulation will typically warp back and return to normal. And at number 5, Monarch. Monarch, aka Jamie Braddock Jr., first appeared in Marvel's panels in Captain Britain issue 9 in 1976. He is the brother of Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, and Psylocke, Elizabeth Braddock. Jamie is capable of quantum reality manipulation, which allows Jamie to see the world as invisible string constructs. He can pull these to transform reality. Now, he can only manipulate dense forms, with phase beings showing some level of resistance to him, and formerly he needed to be close enough to a target to touch the cosmic filaments it or they were composed of, but his range may now have grown. Now, in addition to this, he has also demonstrated sorcery abilities, summoning extra-dimensional creatures and depicting mind control over others. He's proven capable of teleporting and, most horrifically, warping bodies into terrifying shapes. Yeah, no bueno. Moving on to number 4, Iceman. Now, a lot of you guys mentioned Iceman and a few of our upcoming numbers in the comments below, so save them for last. Bobby Drake's abilities have really grown in power since he first appeared as one of the initial X-Men members in the X-Men issue 1 back in 1963. Iceman's Omega power is temperature manipulation, and while it's been stated that he's yet to tap into his full potential, the character's powers can potentially influence the ecosystem of the entire world. He can instantly decrease the temperature of ambient water vapor in his immediate environment, dropping it to below 0 degrees Celsius, which freezes it into ice. Now, the ice doesn't break unless Bobby wills it to, and he can create an array of ice structures which include projectiles, shields, slides, and he has even crafted miniature cities before. He does not emanate cold, instead he decreases thermal energy, which he can also perceive in objects around him. And when Emma Frost possessed his body, we learned that he can do even more, like control all forms of moisture, freeze the fluids within people's bodies, and travel as liquid, solid, or gas. Up next, number 3, Hope Summers. Hope Summers first appeared in X-Men issue 205 back in 2007, and was the first mutant born after the events of House of M. Hope's ability is power manipulation. She can psychically manipulate and mimic the powers of other mutants, which is an ability that has unspecified limits currently, but mimics her victims' powers at their utmost capacity, which is pretty darn impressive. Her restriction, of course, depends on how close she is to the mutants that she's mimicking. And it's not only mimicry that she can do. She has proven immune to Rogue's lethal absorption powers, with her touch erasing all of the memories and powers that Rogue had previously absorbed. But she also cured her of the Strain 88 virus, so hey, not too shabby. Hope has also proven to jumpstart a newly emerging mutant power to an undefined extent, and she can redirect the force of magnetic fields into negative matter. Up next, number 2, Magneto. It should be no surprise that Magneto finds himself on this list. He was actually who Xavier, in his files in House of X1, used as an example when defining an Omega level mutant versus a mutant with an Omega level ability. I quote, "Both Magneto and Forge are the most powerful mutants of their power types on the planet, magnetism and technopathy, respectively. But what makes Magneto, and not Forge, an Omega level mutant is that the upper limit of Forge's measurable powers could hypothetically be surpassed, and in fact has by multiple humans on the planet, while the upper limit of Magneto's power cannot be surpassed by any measurable fashion." End quote. So, what do those powers entail? Well, he can manipulate magnetic fields to achieve a wide variation of effects. The maximum amount that he can manipulate at one time is still unknown, although he's proven such feats as moving asteroids and levitating objects like a 30,000-ton nuclear submarine. His abilities extend to an atomic level, specifically the electromagnetic force responsible for chemical bonding, which has given him the power to manipulate chemical structures and rearrange matter. He can generate electromagnetic pulses and manipulate electromagnetic energy right down to the photons. He can turn invisible by warping light and can resist strong telepathic powers, which has often been explained thanks to his helmet or because of his electromagnetic powers interfering with the attack or just from his own willpower. Plus, he's a genius, with experience in fields that include genetic manipulation, particle physics, and engineering. He also once had the power of a magnetic personality. But as you can imagine, that kind of fell into obscurity compared to pretty much everything else we just mentioned. He was a charmer. I guess he still is. And last but not least, in at number 1, Storm. Storm's status as an Omega level mutant is more of a recent revelation than some of the others on our list. Storm has the ability to manipulate weather, a psionic power that lets her control all forms of weather over vast territories, both on Earth and in extraterrestrial ecosystems. This entails modifying temperature, controlling all forms of precipitation, humidity, and moisture at a molecular level. She can generate lightning and other electromagnetic atmospheric phenomena, and can control atmospheric pressure. She can create tornadoes, thunderstorms, blizzards, and even hurricanes, and then dissipate that weather entirely to form clear skies. She can channel ambient electromagnetism through her body in order to create electric blasts. She can flash freeze objects or people, change atmospheric pollutants into acid rain or toxic fog, fly, of course, and even manipulate the air inside of a person's lungs. She can control natural forces the likes of cosmic storms, ocean currents, solar wind, and an electromagnetic field, along with the ability to separate water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen via electrolysis, which gives her the ability to breathe underwater. All in all, she is one of the most powerful mutants on Earth.
Number 10, Tempest. Eva Bell first made her appearance in All New X-Men issue number 1 in 2013. She could be viewed as one of the most useful of the New Mutants to surface in the past decade, because her abilities are so based in something that the X-Men and mutants and, well, sort of all of Marvel seem to get involved with more often these days: time travel. Tempest has chronokinesis powers, which allow her to alter the way time moves around her in the area she is in, and allow her to create time bubbles which she can send through time for a short while, and even time travel fully herself. She has been referred to as near Omega level, and honestly, with a bit more control over her powers, I could see her making the Omega list any day. Tempest is also one of the House of X's The Five, and helps to bring deceased mutants back to life by speeding up the growth process within their eggs. It sounds creepy when I say it like that, but more will be explained. Number 9, Morph. I really like this mutant because with him they found a way to make shapeshifting abilities unique again, and somehow make them even weirder and cooler at the same time. Morph, aka Benjamin Deeds, is able to shapeshift into those he spends time with, slowly, over time. So the more time he spends with you, the more he starts to resemble you. He really is the embodiment of what it feels like to live in somebody else's shoes. As he fuses with you, he takes on your look, your voice, and also exudes an energy that encourages you to trust him, to feel relaxed and calm in his presence. I just think this is such a cute way to imagine shapeshifting, and a useful way to use it as well, potentially calming your target into submission as opposed to causing them harm. It's kinda like the anti-mystique of shapeshifting, I think. Number 8, Gold Balls. Goldballs recently became a very important mutant in the comics. He is part of a group known simply as the Five on Krakoa. Together he and Proteus, Elixir, Hope Summers, and Eva Bell can help to bring forth new life, or well, sort of old life really. They are able to resurrect any mutants who have been lost by cloning them and with the help of X, restoring their previous memories so that in essence, they kind of are the lost mutant returned. Goldball's power is similar to Minoru Mineta of My Hero Academia. Instead, however, Fabio Medina produces gold balls, hence his name. Originally these were simply seen as balls of various sizes which could be launched in a sort of an attack mode. Later it was discovered that they were actually infertile eggs, and with the help of the Five would become the home of unborn resurrected mutants who had fallen. Goldballs made his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men Volume 3, issue number 1.
Moving on to number 7, Psylocke. Psylocke is a mutant who has the ability to construct weapons made of psychic energy, typically in the form of a blade. But that is not all. She has precognitive powers and is capable of telepathy and telekinesis. But let us backtrack for a sec. In her earlier appearances in Uncanny X-Men, she was capable of telepathy, reading, and projecting thoughts over long distances, and capable of manipulating people's minds even to the point of possessing them. She could also affect people's memories, project mental illusions, subdue and tap into others' powers. Now flash forward to her physical transformation into a Japanese ninja assassin. Yes, that is a whole other story. She gained highly developed fighting skills, and later in the Dark Angel saga, her full psionic potential was unlocked by Jean Grey, but the Jean Grey who originated from the Age of Apocalypse timeline, with it being noted that Psylocke is now a telepath on par with both Jean Grey and Charles Xavier. In at number 6, Mr. M. Mr. M is a character who first appeared in 2004 in District X issue 2, and is an Omega level mutant who is capable of telekinesis, telepathy, energy projection, and the psionic manipulation of energy and matter on a subatomic level. He has complete control over the atomic and subatomic structure of matter and energy. M has manipulated and generated lightning, fire, and explosions. He's become intangible, has repaired machinery, created force fields, removed and augmented mutant abilities, has created and evolved lesser life forms, and even has displayed mind control. All in all, dude is pretty impressive. Up next at 5, Exodus. Exodus is a supervillain who first appeared in X-Factor issue 92 back in 1993, and was born in the 12th century in France. He would become Magneto's right-hand man after the iconic villain freed him from the crypt that he was locked within by Apocalypse. A previous member of the Brotherhood of Mutants, his abilities include telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, an accelerated and regenerative healing factor, superhuman physical attributes, and of course he is immortal. It's speculated that his high power levels may have been a side effect of tampering done by Apocalypse. Exodus once used his mind control powers to command a dozen X-Men to instantaneously fall asleep. He is proven capable of countering reality manipulation, and his powers are too strong to be absorbed by Rogue in their entirety. In addition to that, in the presence of Magneto's acolytes, his powers have proven to excel further. During Avengers issue 369, he simultaneously crushed Genosha via a massive force field, immobilized Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Crystal, and Jean Grey in a different force field, resisted Professor X's telepathic control, protected himself from physical attacks, and dished out psionic damage to members of both the X-Men and Avengers team. That's all at once. It's not too shabby, huh? Up next at 4, Quentin Quire. Quentin Quire, aka Kid Omega, made his debut in New X-Men issue 134 back in 2003. Initially, he was a bit of a bad egg during his time at the Xavier School, starting up his own gang known aptly as the Omega Gang. But more recently, he was a member of the Fresh Start iteration of the West Coast Avengers, putting his psionic powers to good use. So what exactly do his skills entail of? Well, he has advanced cognitive and telepathic abilities that allow him to construct and organize his thoughts at an incredibly fast rate. He can manipulate the minds of others, both overtly and covertly, resist mind probes, and disable other forms of psychic manipulation. Now, according to Charles Xavier, his powers are deep and subtle, and he's able to influence the minds of those around him. Similar to Psylocke, he can manifest his abilities to create weapons like a psychic shotgun or explosives. In at 3, Nate Gray. Nate Gray came to be during the Age of Apocalypse story event. He's an alternate version of Cable who hails from Earth 295, the world in which that event occurs. He is the biological son of Scott Summers and Jean Grey, born from genetic tampering by Mr. Sinister. And unlike Cable, thanks to not being infected by a techno-organic virus, he was able to achieve his potential with his telepathic and telekinetic powers, making him one of the most powerful mutants in existence. So what exactly can Nate Gray do aside from what we've already mentioned? Well, he can manipulate energy and matter, he is capable of psychometry, precognition, teleportation, astral projection, cross-dimensional travel, and energy projection. Sinister had originally designed him so that his powers would inevitably kill him, but after traveling through multiple dimensions, he acquired a special genetic dampener that would prevent that from occurring, and even allowed his abilities to excel further, letting him view and traverse higher planes of existence. He was once measured as having a psionic energy output that matched that of the Dark Phoenix. But after opening a portal to Sugarman's home reality, he gained acute nerve damage, which almost burnt out his entire power set. Moving on to 2, Jean Grey. Jean Grey's presence on this list should be a given. As one of the initial X-Men members, she's been kicking around in the comics since 1963's The X-Men issue 1, born with telekinetic and telepathic powers. Unable to cope with the full scope of her abilities, Charles Xavier would suppress her access to them, focusing on her psychokinetic abilities while training her instead. But the real reason she's on this list is thanks to the Phoenix Force, which amplifies her powers in an astounding way. Initially, the introduction of the Phoenix was a manifestation of her true potential. But as time went on and multiple retcons occurred pertaining to the Phoenix Saga, Jean and the Phoenix Force became separate entities from one another, with Jean acting as a host, but a unique one at that. She's the only character to ever force the Phoenix against its own cosmic will to do her bidding. According to Women of Marvel Celebrating 7 Decades Handbook, I quote, "While empowered by the Phoenix Force, Jean has total telekinetic control of matter at the molecular level, allowing her to manipulate atomic structures on a universal scale. She can generate any form of energy in seemingly unlimited amounts, as well as absorb energy from sources as great as a supernova, or even convert her physical form to pure energy and back again. The Phoenix Force can also resurrect the dead under some conditions, and absorb the life force from other sentient beings to bolster its own." And last but not least, in at number 1, Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is perhaps one of the most impressive characters on our list, primarily due to his young age. He is the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm from the Fantastic Four, whose powers over the years have been established as one of the strongest skill sets to appear in Marvel Comics. Franklin can warp reality to the extent that any thought or desire he has, he can bring it to fruition, even on a cosmic scale. He can rearrange the molecular structure of matter and energy at will, and can even create a pocket universe, which he did one time, subconsciously, which was a replica of Earth 616. Here's where it gets fun though. Several cosmic entities, the likes of Eternity, Infinity, and Galactus, have noted that he is on par with Celestials in terms of his power levels. While it's unknown how far his powers may take him in adulthood, we have seen an older version of him from Earth 4280, who destroyed 2 Celestials in combat, and then rubbed shoulders with Galactus, looking out into the galaxy, noting that billions of years from now, the two of them will witness the birth of a new universe. So yeah, that implied he was immortal.
Number 10, Rogue. When it comes to arm wrestling, most heroes would have nothing on Rogue. Her abilities allow her to steal the powers, and so much more, of whomever she makes contact with. When she kissed Deadpool, she actually even adopted his severely deformed skin, leaving Wade to look all shiny and pretty again. But while Rogue's abilities themselves are shiny indeed, and allow her to drain the energy, memories, and superpowers of her opponents, she would also likely end up killing them if she held on for too long, or at least put them in a coma like she did with her first kiss, Cody Robbins. Because of this and our hypothetical mutant arm wrestling championship, she would likely be disqualified for killing her opponent. At least old Rogue would. Obviously Rogue has more control over her powers now. But although taking someone's strength does make you strong, it also still kind of feels like cheating. Like, I love Rogue, I love her, but it feels a little like cheating in a strength competition, you know what I mean? Number 9, Monet St. Croix. M is definitely a mutant who is stronger than she might look. Her super strength has allowed her to even take on She-Hulk in a fight. In Volume 2 of She-Hulk from 2005, these two end up turning to blows after both not initially wanting to fight one another. They both consider the other to be a difficult and powerful foe, and Monet proves just how much of a strong-arm nuisance she can really be, managing to even meet She-Hulk in strength. So when it comes to her power in regards to a fist fight, you best believe she would handily be able to take down many other super strong mutants. After all, She-Hulk is known as one of the strongest characters in Marvel, and even if Monet didn't beat her, holding her off is an impressive feat. Just meeting her is like, whoa, you strong. Number 8, Gentle. Gentle is a newer mutant. He was first introduced in New X-Men Volume 2, and is considered to be a special mutant due to his Wakandan heritage. If you haven't noticed in the comics, mutants that come from Wakanda, that's not really a thing. Nesno Abidemi is half Russian and half Wakandan, and actually inherited his X gene from his father. His mutant powers allow him to gain muscle mass. In fact, the upper limit of his strength he can amass and exhibit has yet to be defined. His super strength could in fact be limitless. When using his powers, he also becomes super tough and durable as a result. Originally, he he had less control of his powers and experienced a great pain when using them as a result of the vast increase to his muscle mass, and psychological scars which also lended to this as well. Eventually Jean would help him to overcome this weakness, and the vibranium tattoos that he covers himself with help him to harness and control his powers more easily as well. It has been said that he is on the same level of strength as Colossus, and that he could even likely take the Hulk on in a fight.
And at 7, Angel Salvador. When she was driven out of her home by an abusive stepfather, Angel Salvador slept in the woods, where her mutant abilities manifested in the form of a cocoon. When she emerged, she had grown fly wings. She was found by the U-Men, a group of humans who harvest mutant body parts to attach to themselves, but she was rescued by Wolverine and taken to the Xavier Institute. Her powers include physical changes like her reproductive system changing towards more of like a fly system, where she has a whole gestation period in like 5 days, which comes into play when she has children with fellow student Beak and causes them to become suspects of the murder of Emma Frost. She also has insectoid wings, which allow her to fly and keep her balance in the air even when being blasted by sonic bursts. Using these wings, she can also produce an ultrasonic sound which can shatter glass and even deafen humans when heard. She has corrosive spit which can burn through almost any material, and a regenerative cocoon that has been able to heal her when wings have been ripped, damaged, or even torn off, and could possibly even save her from death or extend her life by slowing the aging process like that of Wolverine's healing factor. Pretty dope. And at 6, Sprite. Sprite, not a sponsor, was on a bus ride in Beijing when Cyclops became the Dark Phoenix and began destroying Earth. As the bus drove off a bridge, Spider-Man prevented it from falling and swooped in to rescue the passengers. At the same time that the Phoenix was dispersed by Hope Summers and Scarlet Witch, Sprite's powers manifested while with Spider-Man. She quickly enrolled in the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, where she wanted to become the greatest X-Men who has ever lived, to bring honor and pride to her family and country. She seems a little stereotypical, but oh well. She has gained the ability to fly via blue fairy wings on her back, and the ability to morph her skin, which has changed to a rock-like texture in blue. She is able to morph it as she sees fit, so far only being able to make her fists bigger, which gives her super strength when she does. You know what they say, big hands, big strength. She also possesses an enhanced endurance, making her able to restrain herself from sleeping, being able to operate with only 3 hours of sleep at night, and studying the rest of the day. Screw studying, let me play Minecraft for those extra 11 hours of the day, taking into account working in transport. Still sounds pretty dope to me. She's also multilingual, speaking both English and Chinese. Kinda like me. I'm bilingual. I speak English and French. Or at least that's what my certificate says. I should be able to, but I kind of can't. Je suis pomme de terre. And at 5, Penny Newsom. Penny Newsom is from a rich family, and is also a huge fan of the X-Men, but I mean who isn't? When she heard of Sublime Corp's project for giving mutant powers to normal humans, she joined the project as a test subject. Originally there were 2,000 subjects, but eventually it only made it down to 5. Loeb, the Sublime Corporation's CEO, gave each of them an inhaler that contained a drug that would give them powers similar to those of the original X-Men. Penny took the one for Angel, and as she ingested it, wings quickly grew on her back. These 5 teams were named the New X-Men by Loeb, and Penny was the new Angel. However, this was all just a test to see if the drug was ready to go to market, since Loeb was planning on selling it to the highest bidder, but he still kept up appearances since their first mission was to stop an armored truck that had been hijacked by some thugs. Later, the new X-Men encountered a fight between the real X-Men and the Collective Man. They tried to fight but were knocked unconscious and taken to Utopia for interrogation. While there, Penny revealed everything she could, while also constantly asking for autographs. Like, you're being interrogated, but can I have your autograph? Like what? Come on, girl. When Cyclops sent the info to Angel, Penny started asking about him, but again, you're being interrogated, stop. Eventually, the new X-Men were taken out of Utopia where they were cured of their powers, but Penny managed to get 2 more inhalers, one for Emma Frost and one for Jean Grey, so you're in for one hell of a ride. And at 4, Cherubim. This number is more of a group of mutants rather than an individual one. The Cherubim, according to Azazel, are a group of angel-like mutants who were the traditional enemies of a demonic group of demons, who were led by Azazel. These groups lived and fought in the biblical times, and the Cherubim have a strict view of morality. Everything was basically black and white, and that's what started the conflict. This ended up escalating into a holy war where the Cherubim won, causing their enemies to either flee or be exiled into an alternate dimension. Their powers involve the ability to fly due to their wings, and their blood burns their adversaries. This will come into play later in the list, so remember that. There aren't any confirmed modern descendants of the Cherubim, but there are some potential candidates for their possible heirs. And at 3, Angel. Warren Kenneth Worthington III originally possessed a pair of large feathered wings which allowed him to fly, and is the heir to their family fortune, which causes people to believe he is self-absorbed and unable to deal with his hardships despite being a mutant. When his dorm catches on fire, he uses his wings to save his classmates, after he got some props from the school's drama department. Like, dude, really? Come on, you made yourself look like an angel? Come on, that's a little much. even for me. After this, he learns he is a mutant and dons a mask and costume, calling himself the Avenging Angel. He starts off solo but is then recruited by Professor X, who convinces him to join the X-Men. Angel is actually a potential candidate for being a descendant of the Cherubins, since he has feathered wings on his back and blood-based healing factors that was actually found to burn Nightcrawler, who is the father of Azazel and the leader of the original enemies. Do you think that Angel is a descendant of the Cherubim? Let me know below, cause I do. And at 2, Icarus. Before Jay developed powers, he helped his brother Sam rescue Leela Cheney, Dazzler, and their band member from a plane crash. Leela had been knocked out, so she couldn't use her teleportation abilities, and Dazzler had run out of sound needed for her powers to work. So Jay played music in order to get Dazzler her mojo back. When he developed powers, he hid them from his family, since 2 of his siblings already went to become X-Men, but would show his wings when performing with his band as a form of stage gimmick. Of course, he had fallen in love with Julia Cabot, but due to a Romeo and Juliet-like scenario, a fight broke out, and Julia's father knocked Jay down using super-powered armor. In grief and believing him to be dead, Julia took his body into a river and brought it with her as she lay at the bottom, wanting to be with him in her final moments. But neither her nor her father knew about his regenerative capabilities. After Julia's death, Jay, tried to die a few more times, but his healing factor would never fail, and his mother sent him to the Xavier Institute for help, cause honestly he needed it. Icarus is also thought to be a potential modern Cherubim, based on the same reasons as before, but if only one of them could be, which of the 2, Angel or Icarus, would you prefer to be a modern form of the angelic mutants who probably inspired this list? Let me know in the comments, cause I'm leaning more towards Angel, cause Angel, but Icarus was also an angel. Finally, in at number 1, Archangel. When Angel gets his crippled wings amputated, the jet he is in is about to explode. Seconds before it does, however, Apocalypse whisks him away and offers to restore his wings if Angel serves as one of his 4 horsemen. Angel is then subjected to extensive alterations, getting blue skin and organic metal wings that can cut through almost any metal. These wings can also fire metal feathers as projectiles. He is given the title of Death and they head on their way. Eventually, when freed from Apocalypse's drug, he refuses to rejoin the X-Factor, feeling like he has changed too much to be a hero. He then seeks out Candy Southern to find out that she is missing. He later finds out that she has been lobotomized in order to protect the secrets of Cameron Hodge. In the confrontation between the 2, Cameron kills Candy in front of Angel, and then Angel decapitates Cameron, changing his name from Death to Dark Angel. Then during the events of Inferno, while with the X-Factor, he takes on the name Archangel, and is clearly more powerful than Angel because, like, geez, metal wings. And also, wasn't Dark Angel something from Wizards of Waverly Place? I'm pretty sure that was a thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it happened.
And at number 10, Matthew Malloy. Charles Xavier once called Matthew Malloy the largest mutant power source Cerebro had ever registered. Malloy, who is from Earth 14923, can tap into extra-dimensional power sources that let him warp reality to his will. First appearing in Uncanny X-Men issue 23 and dying a handful of issues later in number 31, spoilers, Malloy has cosmic awareness, is capable of matter absorption, telekinesis, telepathy, can teleport, and can manipulate time. His mutant abilities manifested due to an emotional breaking point. Matthew had witnessed the death of his wife, who had been vaporized by a Skrull ship, while the 2 were in the middle of an argument. A year later, after his sister-in-law comforted him and told him she still saw him as her brother, he had an emotional breakthrough, which caused his powers to burst out of him. He lost control, which caused an eruption of energy and accidentally killed his sister-in-law. Awkward. S.H.I.E.L.D. would go on the hunt for him. He would kill Cyclops, Magic, and himself, then resurrect himself, visited the Jean Grey school, killed Emma Frost, and continued to accidentally wreak havoc. The Mutant Tempest would have to go back in time to prevent Matthew's parents from meeting, causing him to cease to exist. And at number 9, New Sun. Gambit on a regular basis is by no means an Omega level mutant, but on Earth 9921 there is a different version of Gambit called New Sun, a mutant who, as a child, was raised by a government project called Alpha 1 and was molded into a mutant with an expertise and total control of his powers, something that kind of backfired for the government since New Sun destroyed the Alpha 1 facility. He has total kinetic control. He's able of manipulating kinetic energy at a molecular level, turning objects' potential energy into kinetic energy, which would then make them explosive. He has no blocks or restraints preventing him from using his powers on living beings and does not need to make physical contact in order for them to work. In addition to that, he can cause other beings to not move, or cause them to be unable to stop if they are currently in motion. And he can simulate other versions of energy by manipulating the kinetic energy present by increasing molecular agitation. He can also transform himself into an energy wave that allows him to travel through space and into other dimensions in the multiverse. Oh, and he managed to kill his own reality's version of the Phoenix. Eventually he sought out Earth 616's Gambit and helped him escape Antarctica after he was abandoned there by the X-Men. And in return, 616 Gambit became a bit of an errand boy for this alternate Earth self of his. Moving on to number 8, Mad Jim Jaspers. Mad Jim Jaspers is an insane mutant who hails from Earth 238 and has nigh omnipotent reality warping abilities. Created by Alan Moore, David Thorpe, and Alan Davis, he first appeared in Marvel Superheroes issue 377 in 1981, and later popped into Earth 616 in Daredevil issue 7 from 1983. On Earth 238, he was a British politician who waged a war on mutants, having an anti-mutant and anti-superhero stance despite being a mutant himself. This was as a means for him to eliminate his fellow mutants in order to ensure his supremacy. Eventually he lost his sanity and created a cybernetic construct called the Fury, which could track, hunt, and eliminate mutants and superpowered individuals, a tool that turned out to be incredibly efficient in its successful extermination of those individuals, for the most part. His powers consist of dimensional manipulation, time manipulation, genetic manipulation, invulnerability, healing abilities, necromancy, levitation, animation, blast powers, divine powers, reality manipulation, shape-shifting, super strength, and teleportation. He can survive without a physical body, and his powers on 616 actually exceeded his limitations on Earth 238, the latter in which his abilities threatened to engulf the entire reality and spread to other realities, consuming them.
Number 7. Sapna. Sapna became, for a time, Magic's sort of protege. Her mutant powers allowed her to absorb and understand any languages she came into contact with, similar to Cypher. The difference was, at the time when Sapna's powers manifested, she was in limbo. This led her to absorbing all of the magical knowledge in the limbo dimension, which granted her additional demonic abilities. As a result, she became a magic user who could control demons and cast spells. Magic even suspected that Sapna was capable of reanimating the dead. Unfortunately, we never got to find out, as Sapna met her demise when the World Eater used her as a host and Magic was forced to kill her, trapping her spirit for a time inside her soul sword. Number 6. Nils Steiger. Steiger is known by the codename of Abyss. Steiger? Stigger? Which one is it? He is also half-brother of Nightcrawler, on his father's side, meaning that he is also the son of Azazel. His powers allow him to unravel his body, which is made of wrappings. Yeah, if you've ever wondered what a mutant mummy would be like, this is pretty much it. He can use his wrappings to defend himself and attack with them, and when wrapped up, his body is made more durable by his wrappings. Like his half-brother, he also shares a link to the Brimstone dimension. In the center of his chest, underneath his wrappings, is a dark void that when revealed acts like a black hole, so he can use it to suck in enemies, transporting and trapping them in the Brimstone dimension for as long as Abyss sees fit. Nils can also absorb fear energy and use it to power himself. Unfortunately, he was depowered during M-Day, then repowered by the Terrigen Mist, but only to be depowered again later. Yeesh! Number 5. Sabretooth. While Sabretooth might not be more powerful than some of the mutants previously listed, he is still alive and still has his powers, albeit he is in exile right now. During the Weapon X series from 2017, Sabretooth found himself tied to the demonic world after he sacrificed himself to save his son Graydon from hell. I know, weird, right? What a weird time to become tied to demons, but let's talk about that. Victor had gone to hell to trade his soul for his son's, and as such he was reverted to a base animalistic state and was set free from the dimension by Marduk, who confessed that he would not enjoy torturing Sabretooth in hell, both while he was not competent enough to understand it, because he was all like animalistic, and while he had just earned such torture through a noble deed, as opposed to a series of bad ones. Marduk was like, why can't you just be terrible? I want you to be terrible again. So Marduk then allowed him to be resurrected, setting him out into the world once more, but now free of the conscience that we'd seen Sabretooth build throughout the last few arcs he'd had in the comics, trying to redeem himself. Kind of had like a heroic Sabretooth almost coming, but nope, he's gone. So now he's back, he's bad, and he's on a road back to hell. Hence him being a bad guy again. Sad. I kind of miss good guy Sabretooth. Do you guys miss good guy Sabretooth? Probably not. Let me know in the comments. Number 4. Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler has all sorts of demonic ties. Firstly, he is the son of Azazel, who had a thing with his biological mother Mystique while she was married to Baron Christian Wagner. When Kurt was being born, Mystique lost momentary control of her powers while in labor, revealing to everyone her true nature. Because of baby Kurt's demonic form and Mystique's reveal of her ability to shapeshift, the two were chased down by an angry mob. During their fight, Mystique lost consciousness and lost baby Kurt in the process. Nightcrawler would go on to be taken in by a Romani sorceress, Margali Sardos. His teleportation powers link him to the Brimstone dimension, which he uses as a stepping stone to transport himself wherever he so chooses with his teleportation powers. The Brimstone dimension basically acts as a through point for Kurt, leaving a puff of smoke behind every time he uses it that smells of burnt brimstone. Bam! That's his teleportation sound. Bam! Number 3. Azazel. Azazel is a very powerful mutant. He even claims to have competed for the title of Satan, battling Mephisto and other demonic beings for it. Azazel mated with humans in an attempt to create offspring that would help him and his army to escape the hell dimension that they were trapped in, using his children as a gateway to bring them through to Earth. He himself could teleport to Earth for periods of time due to his insanely strong teleportation powers. His affair with Mystique, who was married at the time, brought about baby Nightcrawler, and Mystique actually may have been the only Earthling that he ever truly cared for. / maybe even loved. His powers include immortality, teleportation, in fact it has been said that he is one of the most powerful teleporters to ever exist, the ability to physically influence one's will, and the ability to metamorph. Number 2. Madeline Pryor. Madeline Pryor is ranking high on this list because there's a good chance that she could be Omega level. Maddie was the clone of Jean Grey, one of the most powerful mutants that we know of currently. While she doesn't do it often, Pryor actually has the ability to warp reality. She is also virtually immortal, as whenever she is killed, although her physical form ceases to exist, she herself simply reverts to a psionic energy form due to her ties with the Phoenix Force. This is why Nate Gray was able to actually bring her back to life. When it comes to her demonic ties, Madeline is a magic user and sorceress who once made pacts with demons. That's actually how she got those powers, becoming the Goblin Queen. She has also used those ties to summon demonic creatures and get them to do her bidding. Number 1. Magic. Illyana Rasputin was kidnapped when she was just a little girl by Belasco and taken to Limbo. While there, she was given tons of power by Belasco, but Belasco was also controlling of her and pretty much a big creep the entire time. He put part of her soul into a bloodstone to solidify his control over her. Despite this, eventually Magic would train and rise up against him using some of her life force to craft her now famous Soul Sword and overthrow Belasco, later becoming the new ruler of Limbo. She even made the demon Sim her loyal servant for a while, though being a slippery demon, he would eventually betray her. Unsurprisingly, that's such a Sim thing to do, you know what I mean?